Hooked on Life, the podcast, is a division of PN Entertainment Canada, inspiring innovation through entertainment.
The opinions expressed in Hooked on Life are for conversational purposes only. This podcast may also contain language that some may find offensive. Now, on to the show.
Hey, I'm Cindy Lynn. I'm a free spirit heading into my 50s with abandon. I was an actor, director, teacher who had a midlife break when I turned 37. I left a toxic marriage, moved across the country with 2 kids, no money, and no job. I decided to start life over again on my own terms. Found sobriety, learned to like myself, to show up for my kids, my family, and my friends. Found a home in the corporate world. Fell in love with my junior high school sweetie, Shay. I love to travel, kickbox, teach. I practice saying yes every day and love being a badass.
And I'm Shane. Shaner, or as my wife calls me, Shay Bear. I am British, and I came close to becoming an American, but I'm Canadian. I'm a musician who got lost in the lifestyle and sobered up years ago. I got married to my girlfriend from middle school, but don't worry, we were grown-ups by then. We travel a lot, we own property far, far away, and this podcast was her idea. With all that said, welcome to Hooked on Life.
You know, I always find it so interesting that when we do this podcast, we're like sitting right across from each other because we don't ever sit right across from each other when we're chit-chatting every day. You ever notice that? Does it feel a bit confrontational the way that we sit and stare at each other?
Right now?
Yeah.
No. Confrontational?
Well, like, because we're like facing off.
Oh, I can see your face. I sit across from you when we're having dinner.
Do you remember what you used to say to me when we first got together?
Yes.
What did you say?
Who the hell are you?
No. When I would be far away and we wouldn't be in the same area and you would text me or email me and you would say something about my face and I loved how you said it.
I miss your fucking face?
Yeah, I love that so much.
There you go. I still miss your fucking face, except right now I can see your face, so there you go.
Yeah. Well, should we get started?
Sure.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening from. This is Cindy, Lynn and Shay, and we are enthusiastically, compassionately engaged in having you join us for, no, that's shit. Good morning, good, what the fuck is that? I'm trying to be creative and it's not working.
Okay.
Oh my God. Here I go. This is my official voice. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening from. You have joined Cindy Lynn and the Shay Bear, and we are thrilled that you have decided to join us for our next episode of Hooked on Life, the podcast.
Okay.
Was that better? It was simple.
Yeah, well, you know what? The second time around is good. It's good. Yeah. Simon's happy. I'm happy. Listen, I'm sitting beside a pineapple today.
Are you?
What do you mean, are you? You can see a pineapple beside me.
Well, I'm acting surprised because I'm speaking from the audience's perspective.
Okay. Well, they can't see us. I was going to say if they turn on their TV, but they can't see us. The reason why I'm sitting beside this pineapple is because I want to be another SpongeBob SquarePants.
Oh! Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
SpongeBob SquarePants!
No, that's not true. I got it for $1.88. This is a really good price for a pineapple right now because we're in inflationary times, right? And yeah, I can see you, Simon. And who's with the hat? Who is that person with the hat? Anyway, let's get going. I want to let you know something.
Sure.
Something popped in my head this morning. You were mentioning to me what this podcast was about, and I was thinking about Jane Badler. Who the hell is Jane Badler? You're stuck in traffic. You're boarding an airplane. You are sitting on a subway line somewhere, and you're thinking to yourself, "Who the hell is Jane Badler?" She was the bad lady Diana from the 1984 TV series V.
Ooh, the face-ripping alien series.
Yeah, can I just tell you, she was fucking sexy. Like, wow. And I was 11, so I'm like, wow. I must have been a very early bloomer. I think I'm thinking about her now as being sexy. I wasn't thinking about her sexy at 11 years old, but okay. You will also remember Mark Singer. He was on that series too. That was very good. But the aliens come down, and we've always talked about these aliens things since like end of World War II. Like, they're going to come down and they're going to take us over, or they're going to blow us up. We've seen that with Independence Day. We saw that with all these different films, right? With the aliens. There's been tons of them. In the 60s, there was a ton of them. But the key in that was communication. Like the whole thing was communication in that, and it was very scary, but it was very cool. And anybody that was a Gen Xer would probably remember that series if they had cable. I think a lot of us had cable back then, but anyway, yeah, that's all I have to say. See, there you go. And I'm done. And goodbye.
Well, I think it's worth mentioning before we get started today that we did celebrate a podcast milestone this week.
Yes, we did.
We have 500 downloads.
Well, we're beyond that now, but we hit 500 this week, which is unbelievable.
Very exciting. Want to say a big thank you to everybody that has supported us over the last 6 weeks.
In Georgia, in Virginia, in California,
in New Mexico,
in the state of New York, in Colombia,
in Manitoba,
in Australia,
in the UK.
Yeah, unbelievable. Really, this little podcast that could, and we've surpassed our mighty dreams.
Yeah.
So thank you to everyone that's listening right now and continues to listen to our weekly podcast. This is really fantastic.
And part of the things that I've really liked about the podcast so far is some of the comments that have come in, because that really fuels the type of episodes that we want to do or the things that we want to talk about. And a lot of the initial comments that we received of what people liked about the podcast was our banter back and forth.
Yeah, right. The banter. Yeah.
I don't know what to call it.
We received one comment in particular by a regular listener by the name of Terry. We know who you are, Terry. And she had requested through the grapevine that it might be better that I would watch some of my fucking language.
Does she not know that you are watching some of your fucking language?
Yeah, actually, I think I'm really well behaved up behind a microphone. Yeah. Anybody that hears me first thing in the morning or late at night usually gets a more colorful outburst than where I am right now. But anyway, hello, Terry. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your input. And we will probably just put that in our pocket and move on. Okay? Anyway, that's all I have. And, that's communication too.
It is. It is a communication style is what that is.
Swearing is style?
Well, it's your way of communicating through cursing.
Okay.
But with that said, people really seem to enjoy us as a couple. I know over our years together, we're preparing actually to celebrate our anniversary here in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
And we've been together for
1,312 years.
Right. And people often comment on our friendship, on how much fun we have together, on how much time we spend together, on how cute we are. Another one of our listeners, she's a listener now, but we met her when we were away in Cuba a couple weeks ago. And hey, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
From New Brunswick.
From New Brunswick.
She was saying that she's
just so sweet, that one too.
She was such a lovely surprise to meet, and I treasure her. I really do.
Yeah.
And she was saying, I watch you guys in the pool, and, I love the way you talk to each other and the way you interact with each other.
Okay, that's really creepy, right?
I'm thinking about that now.
We have a stalker over the hedge looking at us in the pool. Lisa, please don't do that. Join us in the pool or do what you need to do. But anyway.
But the point made, when we see a happy couple, we seem to think that there's something magical about that, or something that they're just great together.
Like Meghan and Harry.
Like Meghan and Harry. Let's not open that Pandora's box today.
Okay.
But it isn't easy. I would say that my relationship with you is one of the greatest treasures of my life.
Oh my God.
I would say, I'm trying to think of the right word.
Take your time.
It is full of rewards, but I would not say it's magical. I would say that it has taken consistent commitment and a consistent willingness to grow and evolve and work with you. It's a project and it's ongoing. And I think today's episode in talking about communication, I'll out us when I think of, the hardest thing that we have to work on together. It is communication, and it's figuring out how to communicate effectively to move forward in our partnership together.
Okay.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
No, it's true. It's true. Communication is key. I mean, whether it's with an employer or an employee or a family member or a spouse, communication, neighbor, mailman, doesn't matter. We're built to communicate in ways that we may or may not know or understand, but yeah, we need to talk to each other and try to figure out what we need to do. And I would say that the easiest conversations that we've had are buying a property in Mexico, because we were both fully entwined in the idea of doing it. We found Dan McNeil down there to help us, which is amazing. He's numero uno. Shout out to Dan McNeil. Anybody looking to buy property in the Puerto Vallarta area, contact Dan. We should hashtag him too, because I think he was he really did make the idea and the creation of the purchase possible, right? Yeah. For us to get on a flight and fly across America to PV, to Puerto Vallarta, we were both intending to do something for our lives as individuals and as a couple. And so we had communicated that. It wasn't like a surprise, like, oh, I want to buy a property, or you said you want to buy a property. We did it together. So, yeah, communication is key if we want to keep things moving in a positive direction, right? And I think what helped too was when we walked into that unit, I was like, I want it. Yeah. And I was respectful for that, right? I was respectful to you saying this is what you want. I had said to you at the beginning, and you'll probably know when you see it, right? Yeah. And that wasn't the first one we saw. No. We went through quite a few, actually, but anyway. So moving forward, we do have a guest with us today that's going to talk to us about all things communication. Great. And really excited to have this chat with her. Our guest today is a registered psychotherapist who holds their master's degree in counseling, psychotherapy, and spirituality from St. Paul's University. She is a PACT Level 1 certified psychobiological approach to complex therapy practitioner. She is experienced in existential and transpersonal therapy. She works in EMDR and CBT, as well as trauma and PTSD therapies. She works both in individual therapy as well as couples therapy, and is the co-founder of Insight and Wellness Clinic located in downtown Toronto. I will also say she is a millennial. She is not a Gen Xer, and I'm thrilled to welcome her today, Jade Roy-Boulet. Wow, that's great. Get your smart on. Get your smart on. I'm ready. Simon, let's take a quick break. Let's get ready for Jade. This is going to be very exciting. We're going to talk about some communication. Maybe we can all learn something from this. This is going to be very good. When we come back, Jade Roy-Boulet. You're listening to Hooked on Life. Hey listener, yes you, I'm talking to you. Are you sitting there wondering how you can be a part of Hooked on Life? We are looking for corporations and people, yes people just like you, who want to help sponsor our little podcast. There's so much we can do together. If you are hooked to help, contact us right now at hookedonlifethepodcast@gmail.com, and in the subject line say, I want to help. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Podbean. And we want to thank you for continuing to support Hooked on Life. Okay, welcome back to Hooked on Life, the podcast with Cindy, Lynn, and Shay Bear. Meow, meow. Meow, 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 meow. Okay, seriously, let's get some seriousness going on. Our next guest, you just heard all the info about her, so we don't need to go on that again because I don't want to repeat everything that you just said because that's really amazing. Her name is Jade Roy-Boulet, co-founder of Insight and Wellness Clinic in downtown Toronto. Yes. Please give a warm welcome to our dear friend, Jade Roy-Boulet. Hello, hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We are good. Oh my God, I can't believe we're finally making this happen.
I know. So exciting.
Welcome to our podcast, Jade. We really appreciate you taking out the time to come and visit us online. We're very grateful that you're here. Knowing that you are our first guest as a millennial, you're not a Gen Xer, you're a millennial.
That's true. Yes, I am.
We brought you here because of that. Can you explain your expertise in communication and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do for people?
Yeah. So I am a registered psychotherapist and clinic owner in downtown Toronto. I specialize mostly in relationships, or I would say it's my favorite. So a lot of communication work, a lot of couples work, and as well, just high performers, perfectionistic, those types of clientele, I would say. And I also run the clinic with a bunch of other specialties and other different therapy modalities. And yeah, that's a bit about me. Just a psychotherapist in the city.
And what made you decide to be psychotherapist in the city, which is a really great title, by the way?
What made me decide to go to this psychotherapy? Ironically, I was raised by two psychologists. And so psychology was always a little bit part of the background. My parents are baby boomers. And so not exactly the type to come home and talk about work very much. So even though I was raised by two psychologists, I don't think that I really knew much about it. And I wasn't necessarily influenced by them in any way, but it was always something that I had a lot of talent for. It was very perceptive, intuitive, really fascinated by connections and relationships. I'm also a twin, so I think I came into the world with someone else, so that probably has something to do with it too. And it was just kind of a natural transition. I never thought about doing anything else. It was just like, I knew right from high school that was my field. Considered law, but it's a little bit too much reading for me. So took one law class and was like, that's not for me. Thanks so much. And then, and always been in the nature, like my dad was a professor. So supervising was very important to me. And then my mom was in private practice. So that's kind of the exposure that I had. So I worked at a couple of clinics I worked in Ottawa in private practice and then moved to the city for a little more excitement. And then when I got to Toronto, I worked at different clinics, learned a lot and really value teamwork. I really like companionship. Private practice can be very isolating. So I eventually branched off so I could do different things and not just see clients one-on-one and just like create it more of a variety, a clinic that offers different things with lots of competent people and eventually building workshops and things like that. So this is the dream of the center, a little bit ever changing.
And what is the center called so we can promote it on the podcast?
Of course. So it's called Insight and Wellness Therapy Center.
Part of the reason that we started this podcast is because we really felt that we were at an interesting place in our life as Gen Xers in that we are the sandwich generation. And so, we have our parents of the boomer generation who were very rigid and had a very distinctive value set that they lived by. Mm-hmm. And then we're working with millennials who have a very different way of doing things and are parenting the Gen Zers who are an animal unto themselves. And as I think about communicating, all of those communication styles are so different and we take that for granted. And so as we're navigating these relationships with aging parents and coworkers and children, it can be really difficult to try to figure out how to reach people. Because a lot of times we feel like communication just takes place, but it doesn't. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. And I think, even communication is now so trendy and we hear that a lot, like good communication skills, and I think I probably saw it the same way at the beginning as well, where it's like, let's learn techniques to explain ourselves in these, let's use I statements and talk about our feelings and, not you make me feel, but more, this is my experience. And in the end, communication, yes, it is something that can be taught and it's something that we can make a little bit like an equation, let's follow these rules and we'll have healthy communication. But really it's very emotional. And so depending on your personal relationship with your feelings and self-awareness, you will have an easier time or a difficulty communicating. And those generations have very different awareness and value for it, right? Many, like when we're in high survival mode, probably the baby boomers who were just, getting out of these very difficult periods, seeing their parents in the depression, all this stuff, they wanted to survive. They just like, I don't care about your feelings so much because, I just want to make ends meet, and I'm communicating what needs to be said and directly and efficiently. It's all about efficiency. And then you have these maybe millennials as well, a little bit, and definitely Gen Z, where there's a lot of sensitivity and a lot more like importance in my communication is about how I feel and from my perspective. And I'm trying to be gentle. I'm trying to be careful. I'm worried about triggering you. I'm worried about the emotions I may evoke. So it becomes a lot more, sensitive, I would say. Maybe sometimes a little too much, but then also very different. And then when those two styles clash together, the message gets lost a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, so sensitive, oversensitive. We're certainly in this space where everybody seems to be sensitive for everything. So, like, is that part of the problem? Is that where we're at? Because we're at the table and we're having dinner and we're breaking bread with the family, and we have teenagers in the house, and I'm not sensitive at all. I sound like the old grandpa. I don't really care what anybody thinks. And there are reactions at the table when I blast something out that I really don't care about, or I don't seem to have any have any sensitivity towards or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is that where we're at? Is that where we're headed? Like, what? There's a clash, right? There's a clash between sensitivity and insensitivity. Apparently, I have insensitivity. I don't know what it is. Is this good? Is this what's happening? What's happening here?
Absolutely. Yes. I think it definitely we do need to be a little bit more careful. There's also so much communication going on, right? There are so many different mediums through which to communicate from. But even in a conversation, if you're being very, very careful, there's inauthenticity, right? You almost lose that freedom of being just authentic and present in the moment. You can be a bit rigid or restrict, which takes you out of the moment. And I think it's important, here in the now is important. And I also see it as we're afraid, there's distress tolerance, right? It's like, can I watch somebody through what I'm communicating? If you have a reaction, we're trying to buffer that too much, right? I don't want you to feel bad. I don't want to see a reaction I can't handle. So I'm trying to be very careful. Being careful is nice and it's considerate, but sometimes it's not the truth, or sometimes we make mistakes and then we get defensive because we tried so hard to say it appropriately. And the reaction we're getting is not the one we wanted or intended for. And so our response back is then defensiveness rather than just being able to take whatever happens on the other side belongs to them, right? The way it's received is not my responsibility. And I can care about it, but it's not caused by me. And so if I'm able to tolerate the way my message is coming across and acknowledge the response in front of me, then, what I said it's not as important, right? It's more about it lands on you this way and I'm invested and I can stay neutral and I can sort of be compassionate to what it is that you heard me say. And then we work together. We can keep going, right? It's it doesn't have to be said perfectly in the first go. Let's try again. But when we're so scripted and we're so afraid of coming across a particular way, we can't do that. We lose our compassion. We get into our own stuff and then we get a bit defensive typically, or argumentative at worst.
So Shay and I have been together for quite a while now.
A long time.
And I would say that our communication styles are very, very different from each other.
I agree.
Yeah. And something that I have appreciated in him is his ability to put effort and time and work into making it better.
Thank you, dear.
Yeah. And learning how to communicate. And, I guess my question is, do you see, I'm sure you do, I'm sure you see a lot of a lot of couples in therapy. Maybe that's another episode, Gen X couples therapy.
Love it. I love that.
We'll put a pin in that, dear. Anyways, do you see a lot of couples that come to you wanting to learn how to communicate, knowing that communication doesn't just happen, because most people come with issues in their communication? Can that be something that can be taught and cultivated? And do you really see that in your Gen X clientele?
Yeah, I think every single couple I've ever seen, Gen X or not, has come to me and said, we don't know how to communicate. So it's a bit of a tagline, and it's probably true. I think that what we are learning is relationships, we're built for love. We are built for connection. We're socially programmed for sure. We can't survive without it or thrive without it. So attachment is important. However, we don't know how to do relationships. That is a skill. That is something that takes work. And communication is a part of that. So I do think, how else do we get the message across? Now, there's a lot of communication that takes place that is nonverbal and that is intuitive and just, built into our nervous system in different ways, right? Like proximity offers a soothing, it's a communication of sorts. It's like, if I'm talking to you and I'm close and I'm looking in your eyes, I'm evoking a more caring, invested. I'm communicating to you that I'm engaged, that I'm interested in what you have to say, that I care generally, right? And that's nonverbal. So what the message is afterwards is maybe important, maybe not so much. But I do think that there is awareness that is starting to come through where we're realizing it's something that I need to develop and put effort into and care about, because my relationship without this will not make it through the ages. Like, relationships are very difficult. Life is very challenging. Gen X is known to be one of the most stressed out generation, the most resilient at stress, but also the most stressed out. And so brings a lot of stuff to the relationship, So if I can't feel comfortable speaking to you about it, or feel that there is safety between the two of us so that we can have an exchange, and I trust that you are emotionally invested, it's not really going to work out so great, whether that means that you're a person who processes out loud. A lot of people process their emotions out loud, like preoccupied attachment style, for example, versus people who need to take some time, move backwards, think, process their emotions, figure out what they're feeling, and then bring it to the person. Some people are very concise. Some people are storytellers, some people really, it's easy to get into vulnerable conversations. They get excited by it. They're not intimidated by it. And others, a little more fearful, a little more timid, that's all fine. Differences aren't the problem. It's actually just kind of finding a way to come together and be aware of what your communication style is and what your partner's is and what you can both bring together to create a world that feels safe for both of you in communication.
So Jade, we actually have a question now from a listener in Calgary that came about when we were talking about communication, and they thought this would be a great idea to explore. Question is, the generational journey to authenticity and transparency. It's a topic to explore. So we navigated from the baby boomers who were so repressed and hid everything. And now we are having to work with our Gen Z children who hide absolutely nothing. And how are we to navigate that? When we think of ourselves as Gen Xers, we think about how private our upbringing was compared to now how you raise your families or our families to be these authentic people and sharing their personal experiences out loud. How do we navigate that?
Quite a complex question. Yeah, it's a bit tricky for the Gen X because, they're kind of considered to be the people, the generation that kind of raised themselves. So they don't actually lead by example, right? They're kind of doing what they didn't get and they wish they had gotten, right? And so most of you guys are raising children in a very different way than how you were raised. Definitely in terms of authenticity and what you prioritize. There was a lot more discipline. It was a lot more performative, survival-based type of emotions, right? Like fear was a big way to get your kids to behave, and emotions were not emotions were just not that valued. No one was that interested. Most of the time, I think that still applies today. If I'm going to have if I'm not interested in something, it's probably because I'm intimidated by it. So, or I don't know what to do with it. So if I don't know how to manage your response of being very angry or expressive as a child, and you seem dysregulated, I'm going to inflict fear to try and control it. Right. I want it to stop. And so in that, it can be very invalidating. And that's, I think, what Generation X experienced quite a bit. And then noticing that had quite an impact on them, especially for the ones who decide to go to therapy at some point. They're realizing, that doesn't feel good. And it's really impacted my self-esteem and my self-worth. So we kind of countered intensively going the other way. And authenticity, is that a word you would have used in the, in 1974? What does that even mean? Even to this day, we don't know what it really means. And now we have these sort of statements of like, well, I'm just being honest. I'm like, well, okay, about an opinion. And now the new trend is authenticity, and authenticity means I'm being authentic to my feelings. That's really what it means. It's not to my personality. It's in a moment. So it's flexible. It fluctuates. So the Gen Z, millennial, maybe Gen Z, is making that very public. Like, I'm speaking my truth, which is obviously great. But what they don't necessarily always realize is there's a lot of immaturity still in their emotion. They're speaking about them in a very raw form with a lot of conviction about how true they are. And so that becomes difficult for the parents because it's sometimes dramatized a little bit, right? And you guys are probably thinking like, this is not a big deal. Like, this is not that hard. And like, all right, I want to validate you and I don't want you to feel like this isn't important, but also you've been indulging this for 3 days, So it's like that fine balance between reinforcing healthy emotional awareness, healthy emotional self-regulation, which we're seeing less and less self-regulation, I would say, and the need for validation. I can be validated by one person or by myself. I can validate my own emotion. I don't need a public validation of 100 people on Twitter. But there's more of that validate me. And so it's kind of a hard line to just do enough of it without maybe being so too self-indulgent.
Yeah, I think we're all dealing with this uncomfortability with uncomfortability, which is very confusing to me because the way we were brought up, you were just comfortable to be uncomfortable. And it's not a good thing, but it was a thing. Our parents were the same way. They were baby boomers and they grew up with rations in some areas of the world. So there was a comfortability in the uncomfortability, good, bad, or otherwise. And so I don't understand why people are crying and going on about being uncomfortable when we grew up with it just being normal, right? You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah.
I mean, I even think about, it's just like there's no tolerance for anything that is uncomfortable. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, for sure.
Like when I even think about when I'm teaching. And when I'm teaching, I'm not thinking about affirming you. And that seems to be very valued these days. The need to be affirmed for what you're doing right or for putting any effort into something.
Right.
And when I'm teaching, I am not thinking about affirming you. I'm thinking about making you better.
Right.
And I know that comes off harsh. But you know what? I'm not giving a shit about whether you are happy or how you feel. I'm trying to get shit done.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think nowadays, when I look at some of the people that I work with or my children, it's this need, this zero tolerance for anything that's uncomfortable. But isn't that important? Isn't it important to realize that part of self-acceptance is learning how to tolerate and how to be present and accept those moments of uncomfortability?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I think it's okay to be validated by others, and it's okay for have people notice and see your experience. But first off and foremost, it's about accepting it yourself first. And that doesn't have to be done outwardly. It's an inner job. So discomfort.
Okay. I'm sorry. I need to interrupt you just for a second, because we are talking about a generation that when something happens that isn't affirming to them
today, right?
Today, this generation, they don't self-reflect. Their idea of self-reflection is to throw it up on TikTok, to throw it up on Instagram, to get people to affirm whatever it is that they feel they need in that moment.
Sure.
And call it self-awareness. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. And, it's tolerating. There's not a lot of distress tolerance, really. I'm a little bit uncomfortable. Something needs to get done. You trigger me, so adjust your behavior, right? Not, ooh, I'm triggered. Let me see what's happening here, which this is the part that the past generation wasn't doing. I'm not aware I'm triggered. Move through it. It doesn't matter. Sometimes I don't even feel it, right? Because I'm just about performance. I'm just about keep going. So now healthy would be, okay, let me respond to what I know I'm experiencing. Something's happening in my body. I'm having an emotional experience. Let me name it for myself. And then let me sit with it, as opposed to, I don't like that it exists. And so I'm going to put it out there. And then if you validate me, then it feels like it's okay to have it, or, I don't even really know what the point of it really is, honestly, other than, okay, you're making me feel seen, and you're making me feel like it's self-worth, but it's fake, it's bypassing. It's not actually you to you. And then you'll need it. That's the thing. You get hooked on it, right? So then when you don't get it, you get very frustrated and there's something missing. So it's not actually self-validating in a way that builds self-esteem or helps you connect with your self-esteem or self-worth. It's cheap, right? And if I don't get it, something is wrong. And I'm back into my discomfort, back into my distress, and probably then eventually deep down thinking there's something wrong with me.
Okay, Jade. So then what would be your 3 prescribed things that we could do as a Gen X group that could help navigate through life and communication with these younger generations that we're working with now?
Okay. I don't know that I'll say the 3, but the first thing that comes to mind would be being patient. It's hard to learn something new. And this is really new. And so if you're patient and also like letting yourselves learn, right? It's not about performing. That's the difference. It's not check, I did it, fail, pass. It's about staying open to the process so that you can almost heal yourself in the process of learning through another generation, right? And also, it's okay to make people uncomfortable, right? You can take it, okay? I'm an emotion, like emotions don't kill you. They can feel intense, but they're part of the human experience and they're important. And so watching somebody be vulnerable or watching an emotion that appears difficult for someone else, like just stay present. That's doing enough. I think that's the key to the whole thing is you're doing enough just by caring and being present. You don't need to fix it. This isn't Gen X loving to fix things and being super proactive. But this is not a solving thing at all. This is just witnessing, right? And whatever you're witnessing, and just acknowledging that you're witnessing is enough. People try to do too much. It's not about solving other people's issues. It's not, it's just witness, be there, find a compassionate place in you and just hear it from there.
Wow. I can honestly say that sounds really easy, but I think that is a really difficult thing to do.
It's doable. Takes practice. It's like, it's unlearning and relearning. And that's the big thing for Gen X. It's really different. Like you have to unlearn the repressed way your parents might have dealt with their emotions and their communication, and then relearn this other way that is deeply vulnerable and completely different and like kind of like discouraged when you were younger. So,
okay, Jade, I have a question. So it's been 14 years since I got sober, and communication was not that important to me, or at least I didn't respect communication to the extent that I do now before I got sober. But then I got sober, thank God, and continue to do so. And part of that is communicating honestly and fully to the best of my ability. And so there are times where I feel like there's communication, not breakdowns, but no assistance or very little assistance from others. And so, if I'm moving a couch up and down the stairs, I know that I tend to feel like someone's going to come and help me move the couch, even though they may not want to. But when it comes to communication, that doesn't always happen. Mm-hmm. I don't always feel like someone's there to engage with me in communicating. So like, how does one, being me, how does one find resolve in the possibility that that kind of communication level for me, and I don't think I'm asking too much, but maybe I am asking too much. How does one resolve the idea that someone may not communicate with me fully in a moment, and then I have to somehow deal with that?
Yeah. I think sometimes there's a little bit of a bias as well as like what I believe about your communication skills. If I know you and like, I assume, and I'm maybe picking up some nonverbals that make me believe that you don't want to communicate, or that you're uninterested, or that you're disengaged and things like that, which already then plays into this feeling of reciprocity and not happening, or I'm engaging you and you're not here with me, you know? And then there's also, I would say, having to evaluate your own like judgments about how you're seeing the situation. Like, I need more. Why is that? Why? What is it that you feel you are missing out on right now? Or what is it that's not allowing you to connect with this other person, even though they have a different communication style, or even just pace, or, you know, disclosure, you know, how much they like to share with you. And then there's also threat, right? Language is something that is most vital. It's what separated us from animals, you know? So it's an art, and it's something we learn. And when it's emotional, it doesn't also, if we're triggered, it doesn't also allow us to access certain parts of our brain that make us like at our best smart, right? Shame is a blocker. We are literally stupider when that emotion is a part of it. So if communicating is something that I believe myself to be bad at, or I find very, very intimidating, and so then you bring fear and shame into the mix, I am therefore I have less access to actual words and information. And so if I'm intimidated, I won't be able to engage with you in an authentic, connected manner, because I'm flooded by an emotion that is preventing that from taking place. So to engage someone, it's about safety, really. So if there's a lot of safety between the two of you, then there's more communication flow. So I would ask the other person, how do I make you safe to communicate with me right now?
So then with shame, that seems to be something that is very common thread with the Gen X that we all deal with. And I guess my question to you is that something, knowing that we as a generation are dealing with, well, I don't even know if we're dealing with it. Sometimes we're so busy thinking about getting our stuff done.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know how many people are really dealing with that aspect of ourselves. But do you think that that's something that we then in turn have unconsciously passed down to the next generation? Or do you feel like the next generations have their own stuff to deal with?
I think they have they're going to have their own. Shame, I mean, is universal and will forever remain. It is one of the most primal emotions because we're social creatures. But what Gen X had that I see pretty much guaranteed every time in therapy is a lot of not enough types of emotions. And that's shame at its core. So a lot of unworthiness and invalidation of that. So yeah, loads of shame. And so not enough is a massive motivator, right? It will make me extremely productive. It can also create procrastination, but it's like all of society runs on not enough. So that's definitely the big, big core issue for Gen X, and also why it makes them so stressed out. I think that's sort of being countered a little bit now, but we're going a little bit too far, maybe, where it's like, I'm all about your self-worth and I'm all about you just feeling good and, self-esteem and never saying no. I mean, I'm dramatizing it a little bit. Like, I think people are that far on the edge, but let's go to the extreme for a moment where, you're seeing parenting styles that are never say no, attend to every need that the child has, and just to be very gentle, validating, and, no discipline of any sort. And that's okay. It might create people with high self-esteem. Maybe it also might create little entitled monsters. We'll see, attend to me, a child is narcissistically programmed, and that's normal, but you're supposed to eventually mature out of that. I don't know that being that sensitive, if we don't at the same time teach distress tolerance and that it's okay to feel a negative, quote unquote negative. I don't really love positive, negative feelings, but difficult emotions, difficult energies and movements in your body. If you don't know how to create distress tolerance for that, we're going to go too far the other way. And it's going to create, to keep it really brief and simple, a version of narcissism, most likely.
Yeah, and I'm sure that TikTok and Instagram and Facebook has not helped their cause, right?
Don't think so. Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we will have to see what we see and see how this all pans out for us in the future. I don't know where we're going to go, but anyway, listen, so here's we're coming to the close, and every episode we have with guests, we always introduce the rapid fire. We have some rapid fire questions for you. So we know that you are not a Gen Xer, but you are a millennial, but we are going to make you an honorary Gen Xer today, if you don't mind. I think you're cool with that, right?
Let's see. I'm trying to put on my Gen X hat as best as possible. Yeah.
So just answer the questions that come to you as honestly and as freely as possible. Use your communication skills. I'm sure we'll
nice one.
Okay, here we go, Jade.
McDonald's or KFC?
McDonald's.
MASH or Hill Street Blues?
MASH.
Roller rink or arcade?
Roller rink.
Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi?
To be honest, I haven't seen any of them, but I would say Star Wars. Yeah, I know that makes me a weirdo, but yeah.
Okay. It's okay. We said honorary, so that's fine.
But that's just preference. Like most people in my generation have seen it. I don't know.
Okay, so here's one more question then. What was your favorite movie from the 80s?
That's a good question. I think it's called, this is going to be so revealing and hilarious, Fatal Attraction. Yeah. Is that the one that with Michael Douglas?
Oh, yeah. Fatal Attraction.
That was the 80s. That was 90s. That was 1987.
Okay, yeah. So the 80s for sure.
1987.
Early, yeah,
that was a good movie.
80s vibe at the time.
Glenn Close, remember?
Yeah.
And the
Michael Douglas, yeah.
And the dead rabbit.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Duran Duran or Styx?
Duran Duran.
Okay, Jade. Bike or skateboard?
Bike.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Yay!
There you have it. You did it.
Woohoo!
You did it.
Bells and whistles and all the fun stuff.
All right.
Oh, so happy.
That was good.
That was great. That was a really good conversation, Jade. Really appreciate everything that you've shared. I feel like I now need to go and research distress tolerance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like this stuff. Yeah, but you kind of named it. I just gave another word for it that I use all the time, but you said it. It's like tolerating an uncomfortable emotion, basically. So distress is anything I perceive as difficult.
Oh my God, Jade. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to join us on the podcast. It was very enlightening, and you're awesome. You're really awesome.
For sure.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Well, it's great to see you again, Jade. Really amazing.
So lovely, and so great to have you on our little podcast.
Yeah. Have you guys started airing them?
We'll send you all the information. Thanks again.
Send me the link. Thank you so much, guys. It was nice to see you both and be a part of this. And send me the link so I can listen to the other episodes and stuff as they come out.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you too. Enjoy the nice weather. Bye, guys.
Wow.
That was great. God, I learned so much.
Are you uncomfortable?
I don't know, but I hope I retain any of that. I hope I do anyway.
That was a lot.
That was great.
Yeah.
She's super.
Well, with that said,
where do you learn? Did you learn anything there?
Well, it's really that ability to be okay to be uncomfortable. Like, I know one thing I'm working on right now is to really think about what I want and to be confident enough in voicing it. And then I think, to the second part, it's being okay that someone might be uncomfortable with that, or it might feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And there's no problem with that there.
Yeah, that's true.
What about you? What did you take away?
Well, yes, communication is key, right? for all of us to talk and to communicate. And we have all these different, international languages, thousands of languages and dialects, and we all do it because we want to connect with other people. So that's really great. And I can see Simon is communicating that he wants to eat. So I think he wants to go to Denny's. So we'll have to go hit the Denny's.
Denny's?
Yeah.
Wow, that's taking it back.
What's wrong with Denny's?
That's a good old Gen X. You know what? Before we get on, I was just thinking about a comfortability with being uncomfortable and how Gen Xers are so good at it.
Yeah.
And I was having this great image of being in the family car with no air conditioning and being so hot that you're sticking to the seat and your knee is burning on the ashtray holder.
Sure.
And your parent is smoking in the front seat.
With the windows up.
With the windows up, and you can't do shit. You're just uncomfortable and you're stuck.
I think you just outed your dad there. Sorry, Dad. Anyway.
The good old days.
Let's out ourselves. Let's out ourselves. Okay, let's do this. Okay, special thanks to Jade Roy for joining us today and teaching us a little bit something about communication. You're the best. Thank you. If you need any other information about her, you can find it in the links below or beside or up above. Special thanks to Simon Says in the booth for his continuous excellence. Audacity team, thank you for that. Cindy, I can't thank you enough for continually lining us up with another great guest, another great conversation, another communication skill that we can take with us, right?
I look forward to communicating with you.
Oh, you.
Oh, you.
You have been listening to, once again, another episode of
Hooked on Life.
If you enjoyed this episode of Hooked on Life and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe to our channel. We would also love to hear from you. If you have any ideas for future Hooked on Life podcasts, feel free to drop us a line. You can stay up to date with Cindy and Shane by following them on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, don't worry about tonight's sunset, because there will always be one tomorrow. See ya!